What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Ken Jr. from Giving It a Try. If you're tuning in, today we're talking about Atlantic City 70.3 race recap and course review. All right, everybody, welcome back. Usually we're talking on a Metal Monday or the day after the weekend, but since it was a Saturday race, we're here on Sunday, September 11th, to discuss yesterday's Atlantic City 70.3 race recap and course review. Now, I've done this race in 2018 and 2019. 2018 was actually my first 70.3, and I had the experience of doing it at the Atlantic City course. I went back there after doing some more races the following year, was able to give it a go. COVID came obviously in 2020, shut down a bunch of races. I had a lot of things signed up in 2021, and I decided 2022, let me go back there, give it a shot, see what I've learned through the sport of triathlon and the 70.3 distance, give it a go, and see where we land at the end of the day. This was kind of like a local team race, Merrick Bicycles Triathlon Team. I'm a member there. There was a ton of racers going down there to do it, so I thought it'd be great to give it a go. A lot of first timers for that distance, so I figure go down there, try and give them any of the knowledge I had of the course. I remember what it was like when it was my first 70.3, that little bit of anxiety or pre-race nerves and things like that. What's better to try and go down there, ease some of their nerves, help them out, and try and have a great day at it. The first two times I had done the race down there, it was a rainy event. It rained during the bike course both times. It's a very fast bike course, which I'll get into in a little bit. I really wanted to give it a go as best I could, hopefully in better conditions this year, have a dry race, hopefully maybe not too hot like it usually is there, and see where we were going to be. Back in 2018, I had did this race. It was my first 70.3 in 5 hours and 28 minutes. The following year, I was able to shave a ton of time off, was able to do it in just over 5 hours and 8 minutes. My PR for a 70.3 distance at the time is below 5 hours, and I thought this could be the course under the right conditions to be able to try and get as close to that 5 hour time as possible. So as I go through this, I'll discuss some of the times, and then we'll see if we kind of hit that goal or got near it. So race week leading up, since this is now a Saturday race, not a Sunday race, my plans were to go down there with a friend Thursday, stay Thursday night, get that good night of sleep. Friday, do what you got to do in the village, things like that, check the bike in, and then have that team dinner Friday night. Early morning race, and then hit the road, get home Saturday night. It's about a 3-hour drive from Long Island, where I'm from. So I figure it's the perfect opportunity to have a local race where we're able to get down there, get it done, and head back home. Accommodations. We stayed at the Ramada by Wyndham, which actually wasn't in the strip of Atlantic City. So when you think Atlantic City 70.3, you're thinking casinos. We're staying in the casinos. We're staying in those amenities down there. I'm not much of a gambler or anything like that. I'm more into the ease and less anxiety come race day and things like that. We actually, the third time I stayed in this hotel. It's actually on the other side of transition. It's not actually in the strip of Atlantic City. So if you know by looking at the map, Bader Field is where transition is. You come out of the strip of Atlantic City over the bridge, go up the road a little bit, and it's right there. The Wyndham, or Ramada by Wyndham, which is where we stayed, is about 2 miles just past that further inland, which you'll see come race morning when we have to get to transition. It's very stress-free. It was very easy to get there, to get to transition. So here we are, pretty uneventful the week leading up to. Get down there, head to the village on Thursday. Everything's laid out just as it should be. The typical 70.3 setup. Get your check-in. There's really nobody there Thursday. We're assuming a bunch of people would be coming in Friday just because of the work week and not being able to get off Thursday. So there's really nobody there Thursday. We're able to check in, do our thing, get everything we needed to do, attend an athlete briefing, get some of the information that we had to do. Just very spread out, very relaxed. The weather was nice. Leading up to it that week, there was a hurricane offshore, which was blowing in a lot of wind in the area. Also brought in a lot of high tide. There was some localized flooding the nights before the race. But the good thing was with this swim, it is a bay swim, and we'll get into the course in a little bit. We were expected to have a high tide, not have to worry about any low tide or walking through the swim or muddy conditions like the year before. And things were looking to be well. The day of the race, it was actually going to be very light wind, probably topping out, I think it was around 80 degrees, very sunny, but we were going to have dry conditions, and that was going to be the key to hopefully having a good race day as to races past here. Team came down, everybody checked in Friday. We went out to Friday night dinner with the team just to kind of, talk back and forth, ease those nerves of those first timers. They were asking a lot of questions, which again, if you ever have any questions when you're racing, reach out to someone. No question is too silly to ask. You always want to double check everything, make sure you're ready, make sure that there's no surprises on race day with the course or the event or things that you have to prepare for. So we had fun, we parted our ways, got back to the hotel. The only thing about Friday night in the hotel room, I was set to have at least, a few hours of sleep Friday night, was this dang cricket in somewhere, whether it was outside the window on the second floor or whatever, but it was lights out, nice and quiet, and there was this one loud cricket somewhere, and I couldn't find him, didn't know where he was coming from, and basically that's it. You're trying to have this nice sleep, and every time the thing went quiet, start to close my eyes, and then it'd start chirping up again. Whatever, it is what it is. You really don't sleep the night before. That's why I always say the other night before, which was Thursday night, is always your best night of sleep. So I did get some good sleep then. So I figure it is what it is. We're gonna, be tired race morning. That's just the way it happens, and we're gonna get out there and we're gonna get it done anyway. So morning of, we're waking up. Transition opens at 4:30. Race starts 6:45, Atlantic City. We head down to transition. The great part about staying inland where we got on the road, headed down the road 2 miles, no traffic. We make a left across traffic at the intersection to get into transition, and we were the only ones making that left turn. Everybody else was coming the other direction to make the right-hand turn from the strip of Atlantic City, from all the hotels, and you could see the line of headlights and everybody waiting to turn into the field. So stress-free, we were able to sleep a little extra, make our quick turn into transition, get there, grab our bags, head in, and start to feel the vibe. Get ready for that race day, get ready for that prep in the morning, get your transition stuff out. I'm all about stress-free on triathlon day, just crossing your T's, dotting your I's, and getting things set. So swim course, let's talk about it. It's a bay swim. You start right next to transition. It's a very short, it's really literally right next to transition, and the exit to swim is a very, very short distance to get back into transition. The morning, they were saying it was going to be high tide. It is a swim out in the bay. You're going to go out into the water, make a left around the first buoy, head all the way out with keeping the buoys on your right-hand side. Get to the end, kind of where the channel is in the bay. You're going to make 2 right turns around 2 red turn buoys, and we're supposed to have the current on the way back and not have to fight it. Past the swim entrance just a little bit, make another right turn, and swim exit is right next to the swim entrance. So swim start, everybody lines up nice and corralled right at the swim entrance. I seated myself a few minutes ahead of my goal pace in anticipation of having a good swim. The conditions were poised to hopefully be right for that. My goal was a 42-minute swim about. It's about my average 70.3 swim, and I've done that time right in that range twice now at Atlantic City. The group that I was with, we kind of got pushed in a little ahead of our corral. So at that rate, I said, well, it is what it is. We're going in and we're going to get started. You go down the ramp into the bay, side by side, 3 rows, get in, head out to the first left turn buoy to head out onto the swim course. I noticed right away once I made that first left turn and started heading towards the buoy that there definitely was a current coming towards us. So we were going to be fighting our way out there. I usually try and keep on the outside a little bit of the swim just to have an uneventful swim, to limit the amount of people headed over me or swimming near me or just having issues on the swim. But I kept getting sucked in towards the middle of the swim lane, closer to the buoys as we were passing them on the right. And every time I would start to swim out a little bit, it would just kind of suck me back to the middle of the bay. It was a pretty busy swim for me. It was definitely a lot of people in there. It was definitely very congested. I definitely had more contact with swimmers on this swim than I ever had before. I mean, you are getting close to 2,000 athletes into a narrow bay going in and out, so inevitably it's going to get a little choppy and it is going to be a little congested. Finally, we were working our way out. I knew when my watch hit 500 meters for the first 500, and I really quickly glanced at the time just to see what was going on, and it was definitely a little slower than I anticipated. So I knew we were definitely fighting some kind of current going out there. The sun started to come up at the turn. That played a factor when we made that right turn out at the middle of the swim course. So we hit the 2 right turns at the swim to hit the turnaround, and I knew this was a problem before, but I don't remember it being this bad. But since the current was coming towards us, we have to make a right turn, kind of go across the current, hit another turn buoy, and then head back around. Getting to that second red turn buoy, I actually started to get sucked down the center of the swim course a little bit, and I had to swim my way back to the red buoy. I wanted to make sure I actually went around it. I didn't want to cut the corner. I didn't want to cut the course short or be, that person, even though I wasn't doing it intentionally. So I fought myself back to the buoy, fighting basically the athletes that were making that turn right there. Got tangled up sort of in the buoy, finally got around it, and then kind of started to get sucked back down. Now I kind of got spun around there with just all the people that were swimming, so I had to just come up a little bit go vertical in the water, just get my bearings because I was going into the sun. I really couldn't see, and then I just had to get a good sight line to know where I was going at those return buoys. And then after that, it's a longer second half of the swim. It kind of brings you out, and so it's a longer distance on your way back. And after that, finally just took a couple deep breaths, started making my way down the swim buoys, getting towards that final red buoy, which then you have to make the right turn and come back to the swim ramp. Overall, I knew it was going to be a slow swim. I didn't know how slow, and you never know getting out of the water basically how everyone else is doing the swim. Are you just having a bad day, or is everybody as a whole just swimming a little slower that day due to the conditions? So you don't really know that ahead of time. Pop up, get out of the water, and realize, all right, this was definitely a slow swim time. About 8 minutes slower than I wanted to that day, so I knew my goal for the day on the time I wanted overall was probably not going to happen. So we just readjust goals at that point. We're going to go now into T1, very short T1 as far as getting to transition, but it is a long T1 because once you get to your bike right there, you get your stuff out, you mount your bike as you leave, and you have to leave the entire parking lot of Bader Field to get onto the street, which it's almost, I would say, 3/4 of a mile or so. Actually driving through the parking lot, you can go at speed on the bike, but that's part of your transition time. So that's why some people you may notice may have a little longer transition time. But that's okay, because back, if you remember, in Maine this year, transition was long because you were running to transition. So I'd rather be on my bike leaving transition a little longer than having to run or run to transition from the swim start or something like that. So all in all, it is what it is. The times for transition really weren't that bad. Pretty uneventful there. We're going to head out onto the bike course. So Atlantic City Bike Course is a true 56 miles from the point you start your timing to the point you get inside of that Bader Field, the transition area again. It's a flat, fast course. You could have the potential for a windy day, a hot day, a rainy day, but the weather was set to be calm winds, cooler than usual in the morning. Being warm though on the bike, it started to get a little warm. Very clear, really no clouds, sun the whole way. It's flat besides going on some off and on ramps, and it's a 2.5 loop bike course. Now, that may differ from some courses that kind of are an out and back or a big loop up in the countryside somewhere. So getting a handle on this for first timers at this race, knowing or visualizing how you're going to bike through this course. I broke it down as north to south, even though it's technically west and east. But north being away from Atlantic City, that's how I was calling it, and the south side being when you're actually turning around in Atlantic City. So we'll just go with that for now. When you come out of transition, they pop you over an overpass. You're going to go onto the Atlantic City Expressway and go north into the countryside, which is kind of in Pleasantville. You're going to hit that section, you're going to loop around, go back onto the expressway, back into Atlantic City, go towards Atlantic City. Going to make a quick turnaround inside the strip of Atlantic City, head all the way back up to Pleasantville. Do that loop a second time, come back down the expressway, make your second loop in the streets of Atlantic City, head back to Pleasantville for a third loop, but you're not going back to Atlantic City. You're getting off the expressway and heading back to transition. So 2.5 loops. I did drive this course before the race, even though I've done this course before, but I was curious about the road conditions this time because there were some concerning spots. It was very bumpy. The prior times I did it, many lost bottles, many flat tires. But what I was shocked to see when we did that drive through of the bike course on Friday was very smooth new roads. There really was nothing choppy besides the rumble strips if you by some chance had to go over them on the expressway on the side of the road. Very smooth roads. So that was very exciting because we were going to be racing in dry conditions, and that's what I really wanted. I wanted to have a fast bike at this course. I wanted to kind of lay it all out there for 56 miles and just kind of give it a go and see what kind of times we can do on the bike course. So once we get out there, it's pretty uneventful bike. There was really wasn't a lot of wind in your face. It was pretty neutral crosswinds. So overall, it was a very good bike split. The only thing concerning is once you're done with your first loop, if you're a faster biker, once you get to the second and a half loops of the bike, it becomes a very congested bike course. You're having basically all the athletes in a third of the size bike course than you would typically have, and it was a large field there. You do have the right shoulder on the rumble strips, between the rumble strips on the side of the road, you know, those things if you hit them when you're sleeping, it's trying to wake you up, and the guardrail, and it was pretty clean there. And then you also had the right lane. But basically everybody was staying on the right lane while they're on the expressway, and it's a 5 miles up, 5 miles back down while you're on there. So it's a pretty long stretch. You can pass a lot of people if you're a good biker. The problem is there's a lot of average bikers, which is nothing wrong with being an average biker, on the left side of the road, or when they go to pass somebody, not passing somebody and getting back in front of them. Now, I had a very fast bike split, but what I made sure I did every time I came up upon somebody was call out if I had to that I was passing on their left and then get right back in front of them. It was a lot of leapfrogging, but I didn't want to stay in the left-hand lane and make my way up to the next bicyclist because there was faster cyclists than me out there. It's not fair to them to have to ride up on me as I'm continually passing people and not give them the opportunity to pass me. So something I think that should be talked about in the athlete briefing for a safer bike ride for everybody as a whole would be if you see yourself on the bike and you're not really passing a lot of people, or you're passing some people but having a hard time really getting around them fast, is just make sure you're moving over to the right side. Keep that left side of the one lane that's closed for those cyclists that are out there really crushing the bike and getting a good time. You don't want to get run over or hit with somebody going 24, 25 miles per hour on the side of an expressway. And you also have that option if you're new to 70.3 and you're just an average cyclist, you just want to finish, to actually ride on the other side of the rumble strips. I got stuck on that side on one of the loops, the first loop of the expressway, because there was a car blocking the traffic lane there, and I just had to get around some people. And actually, it was pretty clean and smooth, and there was nobody on there. Technically, I would have been passing people on the right side, which is also bad, so it wouldn't benefit me to be there. But there was definitely some cyclists out there where if they would just go on that side of the rumble strips during the expressway, they would have a super uneventful ride, can just run their own race and be super safe out there, which is what it's all about. So the bike course as a whole, it didn't get very hot. It was awesome. I mean, the bike course did not disappoint. It was fast, it was quick, everything was fresh, paved, everything was well marked, the loops were marked, any hazards on the road were marked. They did an outstanding job on this bike course trying to keep everybody safe. The aid stop, there's one aid stop on the loop up top in Pleasantville. You pass it 3 times. I believe it was mile 10, 30, and 50. My only advice for that, for first timers, if you need something at the aid stop and you plan on stopping, is to try and stop off to the side of the road. Don't stop at somebody to grab your Gatorade. If you need to stop and slow down to grab something, please pull over. It was in a fast area of the course. There was people flying through that aid stop. And likewise, I don't really ever rely on anything at the aid stop on the bikes for 70.3s. So I know if that aid stop's coming, I am going well left, and I am going to pass everybody on the left that needs that aid, and make sure that I'm not getting involved or with anybody that does need to stop for that aid stop. So on both sides of the spectrum, that's how you got to stay safe at those. I know there was an unfortunate accident there, and God bless, I hope those people are okay. Great bike course. Well marked. Was able to then start merging off at my 2.5 loop finish. Head to transition. Knew I was going to have a great bike split for the day. Getting back onto the side roads and then getting back into transition at Bader Field. Hustling to get to transition because now you're in transition time once you turn into that parking lot, and I wanted to have good transition times that day. One little mishap, I did take my feet out of my shoes and keep my shoes on my bike like I usually do. I was getting to the dismount line, and now I had just hustled a hard bike ride for just under 2.5 hours and hopped off my bike, grabbed my saddle, began to run towards transition, but for some reason just I wasn't stable, and unfortunately the bike went down. It did fall on its side a little bit. I was able to scoop it back up and head to transition. I really haven't checked it out much yet. I know mechanically it's fine. There might be a scuff or two on the handlebars. My shoes were still on. I think that's kind of what padded the fall on the one side. On the non-drivetrain side it fell. It is what it is, part of the game. Got a little upset over it, but thank God the bike was over and we didn't have anything happen while we were on the bike course. No flats or anything like that with a very fast bike split. So going into transition now, drop the bike, quick transition, literally drop the bike, hit the bike on the rack and out for the run out. As soon as I started to run out of transition, I did notice that it was becoming a little warm. For sure, it was getting warm out. The sun was coming out, and it's always a little warmer on the run than it is on the bike. Nutritionally wise, I was set. I took everything I needed to on the bike. You do hit a 2-mile loop or so in the transition lot before you head out and actually reach the boardwalk. So we had about 2 miles in as you hit the boardwalk, which is the rest of your run. You're going to do about 11 miles on the Atlantic City boardwalk. Go down a ways to the end of the boardwalk, turn around, travel your way all the way back up the boardwalk to another turnaround at 1.10.5 and head back down and then go off to the finish line. It was getting a little warm. I felt it as soon as I hit the run. We're out there, there's no shade. It's a very flat run course, but again, flat doesn't always mean fast because the sun is out. It's supposed to really top out about 80 degrees with light winds. It was warm, first 2 miles, felt okay. Once getting to the boardwalk though, as soon as you hit the boardwalk and made that right turn, boy did I forget what happens when you hit that boardwalk and it's sunny out. It just felt like it was 10 degrees warmer as soon as you step foot onto the boardwalk. Just that radiating heat off of the boardwalk. And once you made the right turn, it just was hot. So you're heading down now quite a few miles, past some aid stops, just treading down the boardwalk. You're starting to see the runners that are a few miles ahead of you heading up the boardwalk. And at that point, it just felt like the oven was starting to get turned on. For myself, started to get a little side stitch at mile 3. Just knew I almost was at the point where I had to stop to try and work it out and try and walk for a minute. Quickly decided my only option right now in between aid stops was to get my salt out, take some of that salt, try and start limiting some of what was about to come with the heat and the cramps. Fought through it for about a half a mile to a mile. The pace started to slow down. Thankfully, that started to resolve itself once I started hitting the aid stops and taking in what I needed to take in. The aid stops were fully stocked: water, Gatorade, ice, some snacks, cola, Red Bull, you name it. It was actually a lot of stuff. The good thing was I was able to take what I needed at those aid stops, try and feel a little bit better. That side stitch started to go away, but the heat was still there. But once we got to the turnaround, I forget what mile marker it's at, but at least about probably mile 4 or 5 at the turnaround on the south end. Took a turn, came back up the boardwalk, and thankfully the breeze was actually blowing into your face. And now usually I don't like running into wind, but since I was starting to douse myself with some water, as soon as you turn in the little bit of breeze that there was, hit your kit that was soaked and your body that was a little wet from throwing water on you or putting ice down your back. Finally, just a little reprieve from the hot heat. It just felt a little cooler. That lasted maybe a couple miles, just feeling good, but then eventually just that feeling kind of went away to just feeling hot again. Headed up, it's a very nice, interesting, I should say, run course because you get to see the water, you get to head out on a pier or two, and you get to run out over the water, get to watch everybody surfing. But it is Atlantic City. You get to see all the different types of things along the miles of the boardwalk. Nice areas with pools and jacuzzis out along the boardwalk up until the casino area. Gets kind of interesting in the casino area because it's open kind of to people, traffic in and out. You pass some restaurants that are out there on the boardwalk and people just out there eating, hanging out. people that really don't really have much other places to go, if you know what I mean, and they're just kind of hanging out there. But it was a beautiful day. You just keep smiling, you wave at everybody, keep on going. For the most part, most people were encouraging out there that were just in the area. It is just a long stretch of the boardwalk, and you are out there in the sun. A lot of people, even though it didn't feel super hot, definitely at the end of the day, we all got a nice tan lines wherever you didn't have sunscreen applied, or if you didn't put any on, like some people, you got a nice tan out of it. Running down the boardwalk, though, it was just good 8 stops. For me, though, physically, just felt like when I needed an 8 stop, it wasn't there. It was just a little further up ahead. Was able to muscle through the 8 stops, keep going, hit towards the end, started talking to a few people as we were settling in pace-wise next to each other. It's good to just take your mind off if you're at a talking pace and just saying hello to somebody. Hey, how are you? Where you from? Definitely met some people out there. Hit the turnaround on the north end. The difference this year was the finish line. The finish line from the years past that I did the race, the finish line was on the boardwalk. You would go down around the boardwalk, go down off the boardwalk around the finish line as you're passing it with a few miles left, and then come back and hit the finish line. This time, though, it was off onto the sand. So we would pass it. You would see it actually as you went out over one of the piers on your right-hand side. You can physically see the entire finish line with a couple miles left up from an aerial view up on the pier, and it was set up out there on the sand. It was jumping. People were going through the finish. Kind of pumps you up for that next mile, but there is still a few more miles to go. That's definitely the dog end part of this, race. Those last few miles up on the north end. Got up there, turned around, headed back down. That's where all the people were at that final turn, cheering everybody on, headed to that finish line. You head back onto the boardwalk from one of the piers, make a left, and then you got a little bit of a sand run. People were complaining about the sand run, but if you know Delmo Sports, he loves having a certain part of a race in the sand, and I think finishing on the sand like that was pretty epic. When else are you going to be able to, locally go through a 70.3 finish in the sand, not running on the red carpet like usual, finishing up, and then, just celebrating afterwards on the beach of Atlantic City. After that, great amenities at the end. The only thing is just super hot out. There really was no place to kind of go seek shelter with the amount of people that were there. It was hot. You grab something to eat, you grab a drink, you kind of just want to plop down in the sand. But we were able to head out. There was a little area out in the water, a little like old wooden dock area. Just kind of sat there with our feet in the water, had something to eat, had a drink, refueled. Was able to watch a bunch of the team members come through, some of them completing 70.3 distance for the first time. Was able to grab my phone, start tracking everybody, see where everybody was at. Everybody finished that went down there, everybody in my tracker. So that means it was a good day. Everybody got it done. As somebody who's done this race a couple times before in different conditions, and somebody who's done some other 70.3s before, just because it's a flat course, just because it's a flat run, doesn't mean it doesn't have its own challenges. It was a day, it was a tough day. It's always earned, it's never given. Just remember that. If you didn't hit a specific time you thought you wanted to hit yesterday in Atlantic City, don't let it stress you out. Overall, it was still a tough day. We had our own conditions to battle. It was a rough swim. At the end, I realized, talking to a lot of people, even some good swimmers, that their times weren't what they thought they were. So don't beat yourself up over that. Remember, you crossed the finish line. We get to do this. Be forever grateful about that we're able to train, we're able to participate in these events, and we're able to complete them. As for myself on the day, I didn't exactly hit the goal I set out for, but I did set some course PRs in everything but the swim at this race. I've naturally progressed faster in each of the disciplines over the 2 times prior I did this, including the transition times, and yesterday was no different besides the swim. So my T1, my bike split, T2, and run splits have all gotten faster going down for the 3rd time at this race. So if I would have been able to accompany that with just a better swim and a better conditioned day, it would have definitely been a magical day overall. But I take my wins as I can get them. I learn every time. That's what this is all about. Don't let it beat you up. It was a hot run. I know what some people are capable of out there that I was tracking on the runs, and they were beat up on the run as well. You can train in the heat, but it's very hard to just train in the heat like that on the boardwalk midday after having a pretty good effort on the bike, because it's a flat course. You're out there, you're pedaling, you're putting in a good amount of effort out there. You don't realize it, but you were probably pedaling nonstop the entire time. You really don't get any relief when you're on a flat course. And then to head out into the heat like that, it was warm out. Even though you may not have felt like it was warm, like a 90-degree day or something like that, but that sun just didn't go away. It was there the entire time. Whether you were out there for an hour and a half on the run or out there for 3 hours, that sun was beating on you. So take that to heart. You did great. Everybody out there, super proud of everybody. Watched a little bit at the end. People were super cramped up, headed towards that finish line, but for the most part, everybody gritted, got it done, determination, crossed that finish line no matter what, and were able to say they're a finisher. Congratulations, everybody. Everybody did an outstanding job. Overall, great race. Thank you again, Delmo Sports. They never not impress when they put on their events. He goes out, race director, out of his way to make sure you have a great experience from start to finish. Overall, again, a magical day. Being able to recap as well on the Facebook group for the Atlantic City 70.3, hearing about everybody's journey that day and the struggles that they went through and overcame. One cool thing, actually, someone posted the video in the swim. During the swim course, there was actually a family of dolphins that were swimming through the swim course. So it can't be that bad, the Bay of Atlantic City. If the dolphins are out there, it couldn't have been that bad. So again, pretty good day overall. Really, for this race, Atlantic City, we probably couldn't have asked for better conditions. Even the race director had mentioned that it was just going to be a magical day. Thanks all for tuning in. Stay after it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and don't forget, balance that life 1 mile at a time, and we'll see you on the next one.